الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we pray that Allah bless this lesson. And we are in the month of Sha'ban. We pray that Allah make us reach Ramadan with siha and afiyah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with forgiveness and answering any of our prayers. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. So in the chapter of fasting from where we are in the book in Muqaddimah Hadramiyah, we have come into page 163, where the author mentioned, وَيَجِبُ الْإِمْسَاكُ فِي رَمَضَانَ عَلَى تَارِكِ النِّيَّةِ وَالْمُتَعَدِّي بِفِطْرِهِ فِي يَوْمِ الشَّكِّ إِنْ تَيَقَّنَ كَوْنُهُ مِنْ رَمَضَانَ وَيَجِبُ قَضَاؤُهُ عَلَى الْفَوْرِ. And the author mentioned, it is obligatory to observe imsak. It is obligatory to observe imsak. The meaning of imsak is abstention, to abstain from eating and drinking. Ala tarikin niyah. Tarikin niyah is a person who does not make intention. We mentioned last time that it is compulsory to make intention every night. But if a person does not make the intention and he wake up after Fajr, now when we say that his fasting is not valid, but it is compulsory upon him to observe imsak. So this is the thing, fasting is not valid, but imsak is wajib. So meaning, it is not permissible for him to eat and drink. If he eats and he drinks, it is sinful. Although we say his fasting is not valid. So some people might have this misunderstanding, thinking that since my fasting is not valid, I can eat and drink. No, that is not the case. Qada is wajib, and it is wajib to abstain from eating and drinking and from the things that invalidate fasting. What wal mutaaddi bi fitrihi. So number one, tarikin niyah, a person does not make intention. Either we say he purposely or he forgets. Sometimes a person forgets to make intention. Is the fasting valid or not valid? Not valid. So this is the first example. The second example is al mutaaddi bi fitrihi. A person who breaks his fast intentionally, without any reason. Without any reason. He wakes up in the morning and for example he is fasting. Then suddenly he decided not to fast without any valid reason. This is al-muta'addi bi fitrihi. Al-muta'addi bi fitrihi. Meaning he break his fast without any reason that is accepted by Sharia. So now he is sinful. He is sinful and his fasting is invalid. And it is compulsory upon him to observe imsak again. So it doesn't mean a person who breaks his fast intentionally, he is saying that since I broke my fast, so I can eat and drink. No. Eating and drinking is prohibited. Even though your fasting is invalid. Wal muta'addi bi fitrihi fi yawmi shak in tayaqqana kaunuhu min Ramadan. So we have muta'addi bi fitrihi, a person who intentionally break his fast, and a person who break his fast on the day of shak. So I basically requires some explanation. So the first example the author gave is a person who forgets to make intention. The second is a person who intentionally break his fast. Number three, he speaks about Yawm Shak. What is the meaning of Yawm Shak? Yawm Shak is like this. On the 29th of Sha'ban, on the 29th of Sha'ban, it is said that somebody saw the moon. Somebody saw the crescent, but it's not confirmed. Somebody said, yes, Some people say no. So now when we do not know, should we fast any tomorrow? Somebody any say yes, but we do not know any who saw it. Some people say no. Nobody any see any the crescent. So now it becomes Yawm Shak. Yawm Shak, and the meaning of Shak, and the day of doubt. Meaning it is the day of doubt. Then should we fast or should we not fast? Should we fast or should we not fast? For example, if a person fasts, he says that since any day somebody saw the crescent, but we cannot rely on who, but there is a possibility that tomorrow is Ramadan, so he's fasted. While he is fasting, it is said that today is Ramadan. Today is Ramadan. And now it is compulsory upon him to continue fasting. He cannot break any his fast. If he breaks any his fast, now same thing to the second example. A person who breaks any his fast intentionally, even though he's Yawm Shak, but now what did the author say? Yawm Shak, but it turned up to be Ramadan, confirm. Because sometimes you see last time many people do not have radio, like situation is different than today. Today somebody spot the crescent, the whole region will know, correct or not? Will come out in the news, live telecast. Everybody sees. But last time it is different. Last time somebody saw the crescent, but he lives 1,000 miles away. So by the time the news reach you, tomorrow is day already. Sometimes it's like that. So last time they have this thing. Because the news will reach for some time. Today is very different. Today, one corner of the world, and he saw the crescent, and the whole world knows. Oh, Fulan bin Fulan, and he saw the crescent. So now, if it is confirmed, then he has to continue fasting. If he breaks his fast, again, we say imsak is wajib. Imsak is wajib, and he has to observe any imsak. وَيَجِبُ قَضَاؤُهُ عَلَى الْفَوْرِ وَيَجِبُ قَضَاء. Qada here meaning he has to make up for the fasting immediately. Alal fawr. Immediately. What is the meaning of immediately? For example, if a person does not fast intentionally, or a person purposely doesn't want to fast, we say qada is wajib, and it is immediate. So what is the meaning of immediate? Meaning it starts on the 2nd of Shawwal. Starts on the 2nd of Shawwal, meaning 2nd of Shawwal, wajib he fasts. Wajib. He cannot delay. He cannot say, never mind, I want to enjoy Hari Raya first. After any Shawwal, then slowly I will make up for my fast. The more he delay, the more he's bearing the sin. Because this making up is immediate. It's obligation and it's immediate. So it falls on the 2nd of Shawwal, because you cannot fast on the first. First of Shawwal cannot fast. Why? Because this is Eidul Fitri. It's not permissible to fast. But second day any can fast. So now it becomes compulsory. Now when we go to the next part, the author mentioned Fasnun yustahabbu ta'jilul fitri inda tayaqqunin ghurub. Now the author speaks about the sunnahs in your fasting. Number one, if you are fasting and you want to break any of your fast, it is a sunnah that you break quickly. And if the food is in front of you, and you are convinced that the time of Maghrib has come, it is not a sunnah to delay breaking any of the fast. So this is the meaning of ta'jilul fitr. We do ta'jil, meaning quickly we break any hour fast, even with one date, and water. But the condition is tayaqqunil ghurub, that you must have the conviction that the sun has set. But if you are in doubt, you cannot break your fast. If you are in doubt, for example, someone is saying the time when you are breaking your fast is occurred and yours not occurred. If you are in doubt, you cannot break your fast. If you break your fast, your fasting becomes invalid, even though you coincide with the timing. Clear, inshallah? Even though you coincide with the timing. For example, if Maghrib is at 7:05, any people are in doubt whether the time of Maghrib has come or has not come, they break their fast. The fasting becomes invalid. Although in reality, the time of Maghrib has come. But because the act of breaking any of the fast is based on doubt, it makes any fasting invalid. وَأَنْ يَكُونَ ثَلَاثِ رُطَبَاتٍ. The author mentioned it is sunnah to break any of the fast any with rutab. What is rutab? You see, when it comes into dates, there are two types of dates. One is the tamar, the other one is rutab. What is the difference between tamar and rutab? Tamar any are dry dates. Rutab any is the wet dates. The Prophet ﷺ breaks in his fast with rutab or tamar. Rutab. Clear, inshallah. So that is why our ulama any mentioned it is a sunnah to break any our fast any with rutab. But normally we break fast any with tamar. Everywhere any you go, correct, man? In Singapore. Rutab any not many. But if you go to the Middle East, places any like Yemen, mashallah, rutab any is everywhere. Because they have any date palms in the backyard. If you are in the Middle East. But down here, any by the time any all these dates and it comes to us, everything and it comes to us in dry. Unless any you buy any dates like balm dates, the Iranian, those kind of wet dates. So when it comes to breaking any of fast, rutab is preferred over tamar. He said yustahabu. He said wa an yakuna bisalasi rutabat, with salas, any three, based on the sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, when he breaks any his fast and he breaks any with the odd number. Aw tamarat, and if you cannot find rutab, then tamar. If you cannot find any rutab, then you break any of fast and with tamar. Fa in ajaza fa bitamratin. If a person and he doesn't have any much dates, even any one tamra, and he has any one tamar, it is a sunnah for him and to break his fast and with tamar. Fa in ajaza falma. If a person say I don't have any dates, so you break any of fast and by drinking water. You break your fast by drinking water. Wa an yaqula indahu Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftartu. This is any the dua after we break any of fast. After we break our fast. This dua is read before or after? After, not before. Because the dua is like this, past tense. Like in English, any past tense any refer to what? The action has been done, correct or not? Allahumma laka sumtu. Allahumma laka sumtu. We say, oh Allah, I fast any for this for your sake. Wa ala rizqika aftartu. And I broke my fast, past tense. I broke my fast by your sustenance. By your sustenance and you have given me rizq. So we say we broke any our fast. So broke our fast any before or after? After, correct? And when you use the past tense, it's after. So that is why this dua is read after we break any our fast. Clear, inshallah. So we break any our fast first, then recite this dua. Because normally people recite this dua, then they break their fast, correct? So we break any our fast. Of course, when we break our fast, we recite Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Basmalah. And then we break any our fast, then we recite this dua. Wa taftiru sa'imin. Taftiru sa'imin, it is a sunnah to give food to as-sa'imin, yani the ones who are fasting. Yani you will get the rewards of his fast. If we make any people, give any people food or water, for them to break their fast, we will get the rewards of their fast. Even though we give out dates. You see, some people in Ramadan and they are very smart. They are smart and generous. So what they do, they buy a lot of dates and they give to people. So if you happen to eat any from their dates, they will get the rewards of your fasting. If you break any of your fast and you buy their dates, they know that they will get the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So some people invest heavily on dates. In our mosque, there is a particular person who will buy, how much he will buy. Every Ramadan, how much he buy dates? 1 container. Every year he will buy 1 container from his own pocket money. And then he will give out to the mosques. So I asked him why he's doing this. So this is what he answered, meaning this person is smart. So he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give any rewards of the people who fast if you give them food for them to break their fast. So if I buy dates, people will break their fast and first with dates, correct? Normally people break their fast any by eating dates. You won't find any seldom people break their fast straight away eat rice. No, it's not like that. People any will prefer any dates. So this person any he knows any that by giving any dates, people any will eat any from the dates and will break their fast. So he will get the rewards any of those any who are fasting. This is amal smart. Yani smart any amal. Wa ya'kula ma'ahum. It is a sunnah you need to eat together with them. Yani those any who are fasting. Because eating in jama'ah is barakah. In Islam, it is encouraged when we eat, we eat together. Not eat alone. Because eating any together there is barakah. Allah any gives any barakah. That sometimes any you eat a bit of food is full. By the barakah in your jama'ah of eating in congregation. وَالسُّهُورُ وَتَأْخِيرُهُ مَا لَمْ يَقَعْ فِي الشَّكِّ. Yani to eat any the, yani we have this word sahur and suhur. Sahur and suhur. What is the difference sahur and suhur? Suhur is the timing. Sahur is the food that you eat at that timing. That is the difference between suhur and sahur. So the author, when he says that it's suhur, it is a timing of sahar. Sahar is a timing before fajr. Sahur is the food that you eat at that particular timing. So in Malay, usually we say makan sahur. Is correct. Makan sahur. Yani you eat sahur. Sahur is the food that you eat at the time of suhur. So you have any suhur and sahur. So it is a sunnah to eat any suhur, to eat sahur during the time of suhur. Clear inshallah? Because suhur is the timing of sahar. Sahar is the timing before fajr. Wa ta'khiruhu ma lam yaqa' fi shak. It is a sunnah to delay eating sahur. Sunnah to delay. But not any delay any too much until you come to a state any of doubt whether now the subuh time has come or has not come. That should not be the case. So usually we give a leeway of how many minutes? 10 minutes. Why only 10 minutes? It's based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ stopped eating sahur. The timing is the recitation of 50 verses of the Quran. 50 verses of the Quran, if you recite, how many minutes? It's about 10 minutes. So that is why we get 10 minutes. I still remember a few years ago, somebody posted or something, and he said, this bid'ah. This 10 minutes and it's bid'ah. There is no basis in the Quran, no sunnah, no this and this. But this person, he doesn't know that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned about one. The Prophet ﷺ, he will stop eating qadar 50 ayah. 50. So the fuqaha, when they speak about 50, they gauge. The recitation of the Prophet ﷺ is not too fast, not too slow. Tartil. So it is about 10 minutes. So that's how we get 10 minutes. Until today, we observe 10 minutes. So if subuh or fajr is at 5:30, 5:20, you should stop. 5:20, it is a sunnah. That you should not be eating after 5:20. And also there is a danger, because if you keep on eating, then the time of fajr might come. Then your fasting will become invalid. So this is where the author mentioned it is a sunnah to delay eating the sahur, but not to a state anywhere you will be in doubt as to whether the time of fajr has come. So not to delay a lot. وَالْإِغْتِسَالُ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَيْهِ غُسْلٌ قَبْلَ الصُّبْحِ. It is a sunnah to bathe the obligatory bath before fajr. Why is it a sunnah to bathe the obligatory bath before fajr and not after fajr? So logically we understand, if you bathe the obligatory bath after fajr, you have to observe what? You have to observe all the restrictions in your fasting. Because when it comes into bathing the obligatory bath, you have to make sure water reaches the outer part of your ear. So there is a possibility that it goes inside, it breaks your fast. And then when washing any of the private parts also, if water enters, it breaks your fast. So all these restrictions are applied during fasting. That is why it is a sunnah in it that you bathe before Fajr. So you don't have to worry about anything. But if you bathe any after Fajr, then you cannot any be washing any your ears any like this. Correct or not? Your fasting and you become invalid. You have to wash like this. You have to take any water, put like this. This is how any you wash your ears if you are fasting. Because if you do this, if you take the shower type like this, your fasting and it becomes very invalidated. So these are some of the things that we have to be careful. And likewise, when doing any istinja, we have to be careful because water enters into our private parts, our fasting becomes invalid. Because all these are body cavities. We spoke about manfaat maftuh before this. وَيَتَأَكَّدُ لَهُ تَرْكُ الْكَذِبِ وَالْغِيبَةِ. It is a sunnah to abstain from what? Lying, backbiting, all these things based on the hadith. The Prophet said, "Kam min sa'imin laysa lahu min siyamihi illa al-ju' wal-'atash." How many people who fast, they do not get any rewards from fasting except for hunger and thirst. And because while they are fasting and they backbite, they lie, they steal, they all do any of the sins. They do not get rewards for their fasting. Because why? They do not eat and drink, but their mouth, their tongues did not fast, their eyes did not fast, their ears did not fast. Because fasting is also it's not about eating, abstaining from eating and drinking, but fasting is about abstaining from sins. Abstaining from sins, then we get the benefit of fasting. And then he mentioned, وَيُسَنُّ لَهُ تَرْكُ الشَّهَوَاتِ الْمُبَاحَةِ. تَرْكُ الشَّهَوَاتِ الْمُبَاحَةِ. What is shahawat al-mubah? First thing, you have to understand the word mubah. In fiqh, meaning what? The meaning mubah is something that if you do, there is no rewards. If you do not do, there is no sin. This is the meaning of mubah. If you do, there is no rewards. لا يُثَابُ عَلَى فِعْلِهِ وَلَا يُعَاقَبُ عَلَى تَرْكِهِ. This is the meaning of mubah. So for example, using any perfume is part of shahawat al-mubaha. It is a sunnah that we avoid perfume while fasting. Why? It is a sunnah that we avoid any perfume while fasting because our nafs is inclining towards perfume. We like any things that smell good. Since it is an inclination of the self, it is better to avoid because fasting you are fighting your desire. But once you do something that is inclined to the desire, it breaks the purpose of fasting. The purpose in your fasting is tarbiyah to nafs. It is to go against your desire, not to do something that is inclined by your desire. This is a principle in fasting. This qaida. Clear, inshallah. So if I ask for example, what are some of the things that is inclined by your desires? What are some of the things that are inclined by your desires? Some of our scholars mentioned looking at beautiful scenery. Looking at beautiful scenery. This is something that is inclined by desires. So anything that is inclined by desires, we try our best to avoid because we are going through a process of going against our desires. Clear, inshallah. So anything that is inclined by the desires and it is within any mubah, it is encouraged for us not to do it. So that is why we say it is better to avoid using perfume while fasting because any perfume is something that is inclined to the nafs. Clear, inshallah. فَإِنْ شَاتَمَهُ أَحَدٌ تَذَكَّرَ أَنَّهُ صَائِمٌ. If a person swears at someone, a person is scolded, or shatam meaning vulgarity. Somebody said any vulgarity into a person. So he reminds himself, Ana sa'im, I am fasting. This is based on the advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if a person scold you or a person say bad things about you, then we should observe patience. Inni sa'im, based on the hadith. That I am fasting. Our scholars mentioned this particular hadith. The Prophet said that if someone make you angry, you say, I am fasting. But is it literally you say, I am fasting, or you are reminding yourself that you are fasting? There are two opinions. Some scholars mention, no, you say it out. Yani you say to the person who swears at you, I am fasting, and to tell him that, yani be patient, and do not do all these things. Another opinion says that no, you remind yourself that you are fasting, so that you don't do anything bad and towards him also. You remind yourself and to observe any patience, because that will make any your rewards lesser if you engage. So it is better for you to abstain. So this is where the author mentioned, and this is based on the hadith. وَتَرْكُ الْحِجَامَةِ, it is a sunnah to avoid cupping, because this is a matter of difference. In the madhab Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, cupping invalidates fasting. Cupping, bloodletting, blood donation invalidate fasting. This is in the madhab Hanbali. In the madhab al-Imam Shafi'i, we say makruh. Fasting is makruh. Cupping is makruh while fasting. Bloodletting is makruh. Blood donation makruh. Yani all these things all makruh. When a person is fasting. Wal madri wa dhawqi ta'am. Madr, yani meaning you put any solid in your mouth and then you start to chew. Usually children, and they like to do this. They take plastic, they put inside their mouth, and then they chew. But then they say, but I don't eat anything, I'm only chewing. Say this makruh. This is any makruh. Although nothing enters into the body, but doing this is makruh. Wa zawqu ta'am, tasting food. Avoid any tasting food. Yani for no reason, unless a person is cooking and he or she has fear for the food. But if we can avoid, we avoid. If we can avoid, we avoid. Like people who does not cook, for example, just for the sake of tasting. Some people before breaking a fast, they want to taste first the food, so they can plan. They can plan the menu, what to eat during any breaking any of fast. All these things we say makruh. If the food enters the body, khalas, it break the fast. Wal qubla, kissing. Anything that is sexual, can lead to sexual arousal is makruh. Anything that leads to sexual arousal, whether it's kissing, touching, anything. All is makruh. But this if with the spouse, if with the ajnabiyya or woman who has no blood ties or spouse, and becomes haram. Any form of sexual arousal, that is not halal and is haram, not permissible. وَتَحْرُمُ إِنْ خَشِيَ فِيهَا الْإِنزَالِ, it becomes haram if he fears ejaculation. If the kissing becomes intense to such an extent that a person fears that he might ejaculate, now we say this haram, this is not makruh. Now it is haram because of its intensity, because it can lead to ejaculation. وَيُكْرَهُ السِّوَاكُ بَعْدَ الزَّوَالِ, after zawal, makruh to use siwak. So I think all of you know what is siwak. This is siwak, right? Likewise, brushing of teeth. No brushing of teeth after zawal. Makruh. Why after zawal? Our ulama mentioned because of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, lafamu sa'im atyabu indallah, lafamu, the hadith mentioned that the smell of the mouth of a person who is fasting smells better to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than musk. Okay, inshallah. So it is makruh to remove the smell. And this smell comes after zawal, not before zawal, because before zawal it is influenced by the food that you eat in the sahur. So after zawal then comes when your stomach becomes empty, that is the point where the smell of the mouth is because you're fasting and not because of the food that you eat sahur. So that is why they make the differentiation between after zawal and before zawal. Clear? Anyway, zawal is what? Zawal is time of zuhur. This is the meaning of zawal. Zawalu shams. Yes. What? Anyone? Yeah, the sun is at zenith. Meaning the sun is on top of you, and with a slight inclination. This is the meaning of zawal. Zalati shams. If the sun is on top, this is istiwa. Istiwa when the sun is exactly on top of you. So zawal meaning when there is a slight inclination towards the west. So there will be a shadow, correct? No, there will be any shadow any towards the what? Towards the east. Tamam? That's any time in Zuhur. Is this Azan? Azan, huh? Okay. Inshallah, we can finish, inshallah. لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم رب هذه الدعوة والصلاة قائمة سيدنا محمد وسيدنا الشرف وبعث المقام محمد الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد ربي اغفر لي ولوالدي ربي اغفر لي ولوالدي ربي اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين. Okay, should we continue any a bit? Okay, we just continue until page 165. So after Isha, inshallah, when we come, we speak about expiation. So the author mentioned, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ فِي رَمَضَانَ التَّوْسِعَةُ عَلَى الْعِيَالِ. التَّوْسِعَ عَلَى الْعِيَالِ, and meaning to spend on the family, to make the family happy. This is a sunnah when it comes to the month of Ramadan. وَالْإِحْسَانُ إِلَى الْأَرْحَامِ وَالْجِيرَانِ, yani to do good and to our relatives and our neighbors. Ramadan is the time of sadaqah, the time of helping people, especially Siratul Rahim. The importance of what? Of binding these relations between our family members especially. And likewise our neighbors and others. وَإِكْسَارُ الصَّدَقَةِ, yani to give a lot of sadaqah for those who are able to. وَالتِّلَاوَةِ, to recite the Quran. Because Ramadan is the month Allah sent down the Quran. وَالْمُدَارَسَةِ الْقُرْآنِ, likewise tadarus. Mudarasa meaning it is more two and more people reciting together or one by one. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ did with Jibril alayhi salam in the month of Ramadan. So tadarus is a sunnah in Ramadan especially. وَالْإِعْتِكَافِ لَا سِيَّمَا الْعَشْرُ الْأَوَاخِرِ فِيهَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ, to do the i'tikaf in the last 10 nights especially. In the Mazhab al-Imam Shafi, every time we enter the masjid, we say i'tikaf fi hadha al-masjid lillahi ta'ala. It is encouraged that we make the vow. نَذَرْتُ الْإِعْتِكَافِ فِي هَذَا الْمَسْجِدِ مَا دُمْتُ فِيهِ لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى نَوَيْتُ الْإِعْتِكَافَ الْمَنْذُورِ. So this is any i'tikaf based on vow. If you make any i'tikaf based on vow, then you get the rewards of obligatory i'tikaf. In Ramadan, mashallah, it is multiplied. This is how we do amal smart. Smart amal. You make the intention of vowing. So a person when he makes any i'tikaf without the intention of vowing, you make the intention of i'tikaf vowing, minimum Allah give you 70 times more rewards. Correct or not? So one person when he does any niyat i'tikaf, you do the niyat of i'tikaf, your niyat i'tikaf 70 times the rewards of the person who does any i'tikaf together with you. But the difference is the intention. Likewise in Tarawih prayers. Tarawih prayers, if I make Tarawih, usalli raka'ataini min at-Tarawih, I get any sunnah reward. But if I say nazartu raka'ataini min at-Tarawih, is there a difference? Now your salatu Tarawih become nazar, manzur. So your salatu Tarawih, Allah will multiply minimum 70 times in Ramadan. Because you make the intention of nazar and it becomes wajib. So the rewards is multiplied. So these are some of the ways in Ramadan and how we can multiply our rewards. So every time we enter into the masjid and we make such intention, when we perform any witr prayers, we make such intention. When we perform any tarawih prayers, we make such intention. So mashallah, and we go out the month of Ramadan, we gain a lot of rewards. ويقول فيها اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني. Yani this based on hadith of Aisha. Yani Aisha radiallahu anha asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, if Laylatul Qadr happens, what should I do? Prophet said, recite this dua. Allahumma innaka afun. Yani, oh Allah, yani you are the one yani, who always like yani, to forgive. Tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Please yani, forgive me. Wa yaktumuha. Yani if a person yani, saw Laylatul Qadr, it is a sunnah that he hides. All this yani, because of ittiba. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam hide. Do not any tell any people any that Laylatul Qadr until any Fajr. After Fajr, any you can say. Is it Iqamah? I'm so sorry. Yeah, we have to go now already. Otherwise, I will ruin your Isha prayers. No Jama'ah with the Imam. Your rewards will be lessened. Understand? العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So inshallah we continue from where we stopped earlier. We are at page 165. So the author, and he mentioned وَيَقُولُ فِيهَا اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني. Yani this is dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us when we coincide with Laylatul Qadr. So any one of the dua that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is for forgiveness. Then he mentioned وَيَكْتُمُهَا, that he hides it. And if you happen to know that tonight is Laylatul Qadr, it is a sunnah for you to hide, not any to make announcement. Sunnah you need to hide, because this is the prophetic way, tiba. Sometimes some people are blessed with knowledge of Laylatul Qadr. There are people, for example, they see any light in the horizon, so they know that today is Laylatul Qadr, and that is a bonus. Imam Nawawi is one of them. Imam Nawawi, one of his miracles is that he knows when it's Laylatul Qadr. So if Laylatul Qadr, and he see light everywhere brightness. When he was young, he was blessed with this miracle. So his family will look out for him on the last 10 days. See whether is there any reaction from him or not. Since he was young like that. Certain people are blessed with this. Then he mentioned وَيُحْيِيهَا وَيُحْيِي يَوْمَهَا وَكَلَيْلَتِهَا وَيُحْيِيهَا. Yani, when a person is at the last 10 nights of Ramadan, last 10 days of Ramadan, and especially on the nights of Laylatul Qadr, it is a sunnah to make it alive by making ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to make i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan. So we try our best. So this coming Ramadan, for example, we have to plan now. How are we able to spend our nights in Ramadan, especially the last 10 nights, so that we get any part of the blessing, part of the blessing that we can attain the last 10 nights. And I believe this year, most of us are open to i'tikaf. Allahu alam, we do not know whether they really allow or don't allow, because up to date, most of us in Singapore do not allow any sleeping over. But Wallahu alam, it's coming Ramadan, I do not know whether anything's going to change. But if it is, then it will be better for a lot of us. Now, then he mentioned kalailatiha, yani likewise the day also, it is a sunnah for us to enliven the day with ibadah, recitation of the Quran, and observing jama'ah prayers. All these things while fasting will boost our spirituality. So the month of fasting is the month of tazkiyah, the month of tarbiyah, for our nafs. So it is important for us to put in efforts. وَيَحْرُمُ الْوِصَالِ فِي الصَّوْمِ. Al-wisal, meaning you fast without breaking the fast. You fast 1-2 days, for example, then you break your fast. This is not permissible. This is called wisal. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he does wisal. The Prophet can fast 3 days straight without breaking fast. This is wisal. And some of the Sahaba tried to do and they fainted. So the Prophet ﷺ prohibited us from wisal. And then when he was asked, why did he do wisal? He said, "At'amani Rabbi wa saqani." Yani Allah give me food and drink. Yani prophets are different. Prophets can stand not eating and drinking for 40 days. They can fast 40 days straight. But today, normal human being, straight away, inna lillahi inna ilaihi raji'un. Correct, pass away. But the Anbiya, Allah gave them the strength of 100 people, 100 men. The strength of the Prophet ﷺ is 100 men. Imagine. This is the strength of the Prophet ﷺ. Nobody is stronger than the Prophet ﷺ, even in his physique. So that is why there is in Shama'il, and there is a hadith about what? Wrestling, right? There is this top wrestler in Arabia. I forgot the name, Rukan or something in his name. So he thought that he is the strongest man in Arabia. Nobody any can beat any him. The undefeated heavyweight. Then he said to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Muhammad, if you can beat me in wrestling, I embrace Islam. And confident. So the Prophet ﷺ starts to wrestle with him. With one touch, he was thrown off. With one touch, and he was thrown off from the place of wrestling. So he was shocked. He said, what is this? He embraced Islam. Shadu Allah ilaha illallah, shadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So he said, this is not normal human being. Nobody and he can even push me into the ground, but I was thrown off the ground. This is the strength of the Prophet ﷺ. That is why in battles, what happened? The Sahaba seek refuge with the Prophet ﷺ. Understand? The Sahaba, they say that if the battle become intense, you know what they do? They go behind the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet will be the first in battle. This is bravery. And he is the best in terms of swordsman. In terms of riding a horse. Nobody rides horses better than the Prophet ﷺ. Riding camels. Using any of the archery and all these things that with regard to battles, nobody can beat the Prophet ﷺ. If you read the Shama'il of the Prophet ﷺ, he is the best in everything. And this is a speciality Allah gave to him. Then the author mentioned Faslun wa yajibul kafara. Now the author is going to speak about kafara, expiation. This is with regard to if a person does sexual intercourse in the day of Ramadan. If a person does sexual intercourse intentionally, knowingly, khalas, we say kafara. You have to pay the kafara. So this is a chapter the author is going to speak about. So he said that kafara is wajib ala man afsada sawma Ramadan bil jima' walau fi duburin wa bahimatin. Even if he, na'uzubillah min zalik, go in by the anal. He does sexual intercourse does any anal sex basically. There is kafara. And even if he does it with animals. There are certain human beings until today. They have any sexual intercourse with animals. Until today, there are people like this. But the time that we are living, ajib, there are people who have sex with dolls now. Even with dolls. So they make a doll, and then they don't get married. So that is the place where they become sexually aroused. This is ajib, akhir zaman. So I think BBC came out with a documentary, doll brothel or something. Like they go to this place, like the whole building full of dolls. So they have to pay. So the dolls are designed in a way like real people. And it becomes a good business. I do not know this in Europe, in Eastern Europe, I think. It becomes good business and people are coming. La ilaha illallah. But to us, it doesn't make sense. Kerana. But it is happening. What about with animals? So all these things are happening. So even if he does sexual intercourse with animals, kafara. He has to pay the kafara. La alal mar'a. So for the woman, there is no kafara. The kafara is on the man. The kafara is on the man. But both their fasting and it becomes invalid. Wala man jama'a nasiyan aw mukrahan. Unless if a person forgot, I am fasting. Okay, you are forgiven. Luckily. You forgot. But if you intentionally do it, then there is kafara. Or mukrah. Mukrah is someone who is forced. Somebody comes in with a gun. He says, if you don't do this sexual intercourse, I kill you. So he does sexual intercourse. Forgiven. No kafara. This is the meaning of mukrah. But again, last week I spoke about the conditions of ikrah. Conditions in your force. Correct, no? Not everybody who is forced we say valid. It depends. وَلَا عَلَى مَنْ أَفْسَدَ صَوْمَ غَيْرِ رَمَضَانِ. Those who does not any fast, for example, they have sexual intercourse while fasting, but other than Ramadan, there is no kafara. For example, a person is doing the Monday and Thursday fast, and then he break and his fast by doing sexual intercourse while fasting. Is there kafara? There is no kafara. Why? Kafara is specifically for Ramadan. Remember this. Other than Ramadan, there is no kafara. وَلَا عَلَى مَنْ أَفْطَرَ بِغَيْرِ جِمَاعٍ. But if a person, for example, he break any his fast other than sexual intercourse, there is no kafara. There is no kafara, for example, if a person break his fast by eating and drinking. No kafara. Kafara is only pertaining to the person who breaks any his fast, by sexual intercourse. وَلَا عَلَى الْمُسَافِرِ وَالْمَرِيضِ إِنْ زَنَيَا. This is a good example. The author mentioned, what about any musafir and the sick person? We mentioned that musafir can break fast, correct? No? So now a musafir wants to break his fast. He doesn't want to fast. And he does sexual intercourse. Is there kafara upon musafir? Can you see the logic here? The author is saying, if a musafir in Ramadan break his fast by sexual intercourse, is there kafara? There is no kafara. Why? Because fasting is not obligatory for him. Fasting is not obligatory for him. Just like the sick person. The sick person, fasting is not obligatory for him. He does sexual intercourse, no kafara. Because there is no obligation. There is no obligation. So kafara is upon any people who are obliged. People who are obliged to fast. And then he mentioned, وَإِنْ زَنَيَا وَإِنْ زَنَا. Even if they do zina. Musafir does zina, na'udzubillah min dhalik, in Ramadan. But he's a musafir. He went to Thailand, for example, to visit his family members. Good cause. Musafir. But then he does zina. Is there kafara? There is no kafara. Even the author mentioned, وَإِنْ زَنَيَا. Even both of them, this musafir and the sick person. Because since we say fasting is not obliged for them, they can break their fast. If they can break their fast, there is no kafara. If they perform any zina, of course, there's sin for zina. We're not saying it's okay for them to perform zina. We say zina is kabair, major sin. But here we are asking the question, is there kafara? Is there kafara? If he break his fast, there is no kafara. Because why? In the first place, he is not obliged to fast. وَلَا عَلَى مَنْ ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ لَيْلٌ فَتَبَيَّنَ نَهَارٌ. And there is no kafara upon those who break their fast by thinking that the night has come. That it is still night time. But actually the day has come. What does it mean? For example, a person now, for example, Fajr is at 5:30 a.m. So they do sexual intercourse at 5 a.m. Half an hour before Fajr. And then they thought that it is still night time. And then they found out that actually there is a fault in the clock. There is a fault. Battery gone out. So they thought that it is still night time. So in this situation, there is no kafara. There is no kafara because they thought that night time is still there. Clear, inshallah. But it becomes actually it is already daytime, meaning the time of the fasting has come. وَهِيَ عِتْقُ رَقَبَةٍ. Now the author speaks about kafara. What is kafara? Number one, عِتْقُ رَقَبَةٍ. To free a slave. Nowadays we have no more slave. So this is not applicable nowadays. If a person has to pay kafara, no such thing as freeing a slave. Last time they are slaves. You go to the market, slave market. You buy a slave and you free the slave. This is point number one. He said, "Aitku raqabatin mu'minatin." The slave must be mu'mina, must be a believer, Muslim. You cannot free a slave, a non-Muslim. So you must go to the market and you have to select. Are you Muslim or not Muslim? Slave master say, yeah, this is a Muslim. Salima min al-uyub. There must be no shortcoming in the body. Not a slave that is blind, or a slave that has got no hand, but a slave salim. Salim here meaning the physical body is what we call it? Yani healthy basically. So this is the condition that it must be a believing slave, and the physical body must be healthy. Not someone that cannot do work, for example. If you free a slave that got no hand, now the value of the slave is below. Correct or not? If a slave has no hand, meaning he cannot carry things. Cannot. You have to free a slave that is free from all these ailments. Allati tukhillu bil amal. So the shortcoming is that it will make him less being able to work. Clear, inshallah? This is also important. You see, when we speak about this, imagine you go to the slave market. You want to buy a slave. So the condition is that the slave must be a believer, and the physical body must be good. But we only look at the aspect of working. But if the appearance is not nice, this is not within that condition. It is not a condition that the slave must be good looking. But this is mukhil bil amal. In terms of work, we ask the question: can the slave do work or cannot do work? If the slave can do work, yes, it's enough. But if the shortcoming is in the appearance, or the shortcoming in the skin color, for example, Islam do not say that you must free, for example, a slave that is white color that is fair, for example. No such thing. So the shortcomings that our scholars are speaking about is shortcoming in terms of amal. This is what the author mentioned. Alladhi yukhillu bil amal. Clear? Like if a slave is blind, for example, this is mukhil bil amal. And if a blind slave how he wants to do work. If the slave doesn't have any hand, or a slave is handicapped, for example, how can he do work? So all these things cannot be valid. فَإِلَّمْ يَجِدْ صَامَ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. If a person doesn't have slaves, and nowadays we don't speak any about slaves, then he has to fast 2 months continuously. 2 months. 2 months continuously. It cannot be like, okay, I take Monday and Thursdays and every week. No, it's not like that. Every day, straight, 2 months. For young people, no problem, and it can be done. Unless a person is old, sickly, then difficult. Then they can go to the third one. And all these things is based on sequence. If you are able to fast, you cannot go to the third one. If you are able to fast, you must fast. And if you are, for example, if a person, 25 years old, you say, wajib for you to fast, wajib for you, because you have the ability to fast. If you have the ability to fast, you cannot give out food. You have to fast. 2 months straight. 2 months straight, yes? No, it's not like that. Meaning, you see, 2 months based on the Islamic calendar. 2 months based on the Islamic calendar. If you fast, for example, in the beginning of Rajab, for example, you end at the end of Sha'ban. So because you see, months in Islam, sometimes it is 29, sometimes 30 days. So if you fast one whole month, for example, in Sha'ban is 29 days. If you fast from the beginning of Sha'ban till the end, you have fasted 1 month. Although it is less than 30 days. Can you see it? So we base on the Islamic calendar. So if you fast, you follow the months. You follow the months. For example, you start by Sha'ban, or you start by Rajab and Sha'ban, for example. So you take Rajab and Sha'ban, is going to be 2 months. So not necessarily 60 days. Not necessarily 60 days, because we go by the months. But it can be complicated if you fast in the middle of the month. If you start by the middle, then no choice, and you have to count how many days. So imagine you fast, for example, in the middle of Rabiul Awwal. Example, a person fasts in the middle of Rabiul Awwal. So when does he end? He fasts in the middle of Rabiul Awwal, so he ends when? Rabiul Awwal, the whole of Rabiul Akhir, he must fast, correct? The whole of Rabiul Akhir, he must fast. And then the coming of Jamadul Awwal in the middle. But now there is a problem because he starts in the middle. So we take the center one, Rabiul Akhir, as 1 month. Regardless, whether it's 29 days or 30 days. We take it as 1 month. And then we have to count how many days in Rabiul Awwal. How many days? Is it 14 days or 15 days? And then we have to add up and with Jamadil Awwal. How many days? This one, it has to be 30 days. So, for example, if he fasts 15 days in Rabiul Awwal, he has to fast 50 days in Rabiul Akhir. But when comes into the 15 days in Jamadil Awwal. But when comes into Rabiul Akhir, he take it as 1 month. Regardless whether the month is 29 days or 30 days. Clear, insyaAllah? Likewise, when come to Iddatul Wafa, 4 months and 10 days. Sometimes a person pass away in the middle of the month. So how you calculate? Same thing. This is how we calculate. We regard every individual month as 1 month, regardless whether it is 29 days or 30 days. We don't, not necessarily it must be 30 days. So we don't count like 4 months, 10 days, it must be 120 days. Not necessarily 120 days. Not necessarily. Not 120 days. If you take any 1 month is 30 days, so 4 months and 10 days, how many? 130 days, correct? Not 130. So not necessarily any 130 because months and Islam differ. Sometimes 29, sometimes 30. But what is important here is it must be continuous. It must be continuous. فَإِن لَمْ يَقْدِرْ, and the author mentioned, if he does not have capacity to do so, then only, what can he do? He said, أَطْعَمَ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا كُلَّ وَاحِدٍ مُدَّةً. He gave food to how many people? 60 miskin. Every miskin, 1 mud. What is 1 mud? Mud is like this. Yani, a hand that is not too big and not too small. You take the rice like this. This is 1 mud. Okay, but now the question is, what is the weight of this? Maybe you can do an experiment at home and you try. Take 1 mud and then you weigh. That is considered to be 1 mud. So it's about 600 to 700 grams. 600 to 700 grams. So we have to pay 1 mud to 60 miskin. Yani every miskin 1 mud, 1 mud, 1 mud. So 60 miskin. This is much easier than to fast 2 months continuously. But again, we say sequence is wajib. Meaning you cannot go to number 3 unless you are unable to fast at number 2. وَتُسْقَطُ الْكَفَارَةُ بِطُرُوءِ الْجُنُونِ وَالْمَوْتِ فِي أَثْنَاءِ النَّهَارِ. Yani if a person he becomes insane, if a person he becomes insane at the day of Ramadan, he became insane. What happens when he became insane? No kafara. Because why? Insane people, they are not accountable. They are not accountable. You cannot tell insane people to fast. Fasting is not valid from them. So if they do jima, for example, and then they become insane, no kafara. No kafara for them because now they are not mukallaf. They are not any mukallaf. And likewise, if a person pass away, if a person pass away, there is no kafara upon him. Because now he has passed away. وَلَا بِالْمَرَضِ وَالسَّفَرِ وَلَا بِالْإِعْسَارِ. But not if a person in a state of sickness. Because if a person in a state of sickness, meaning he can still pay the kafara. Even though he is sick. Or he is a musafir. He can pay the kafara. Then wajib upon him. وَلَا بِالْإِعْسَارِ. If a person is miskin, i'sar meaning poor. Doesn't mean if a person is poor, we say no kafara for him. Kafara now becomes on his shoulders. But he can fast. He may be poor, but he can fast. So fasting becomes wajib if he has the ability. If he cannot fast, then he will have to pay 60 mud to 60 miskin. But he say, I got no money, but now it's a loan. It becomes a debt upon. It's become He becomes a debt. Maybe today you are miskin, tomorrow you become rich. Now you have to pay. So it becomes any debt from you. Meaning kafara is still there. Unless if a person becomes insane, as what the author mentioned, or a person pass away. If a person really pass away, then it is forgiven. وَلِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ يُفْسِدُهُ كَفَارًا. لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ. What is the meaning? Yani kafara is based on the days. If a person does sexual intercourse, for example, in one day, the first day he does sexual intercourse, so we say one kafara. The next day he does another intercourse, two kafara. But in one day, and he does 3 sexual intercourse, what happens? How many kafara? Only 1 kafara. Understand? So it is based on yawm, kulla yawm. So a person can do 10 times any, for example, sexual intercourse, but he has to pay 1 kafara if it is within 1 day. If it is 1 day, unless he does any every day, then we count any kafara any per day. Faslun yajibu muddun min ghalibi qutil balad. There's some mistakes in the Arabic shakl. But basically the author is saying that it is compulsory to pay 1 mud min ghalib qutil balad. What is the meaning of ghalib qutil balad? Meaning the prevalent staple food that is present in a country. So in Singapore, if I ask you what is the staple food that is prevalent here in Singapore, normally in Singapore, what do people eat in a staple food? People eat rice, correct or not? So we say rice is ghalib qutil balad. Even though there are people in Singapore who eat bread, there are people in Singapore that don't eat rice. Every day chapati naan. They cannot eat rice. So do we take into consideration that this is a staple food for Singapore? No, this is a minority. Maybe any 1 million, any people like this, maybe like 100 people like that. So the vast majority eat rice. So we have to pay rice and not flour. So in Singapore, we have to pay rice. But if you're in Delhi, then you cannot pay rice. Because down there is totally is the opposite. Down there people don't eat rice. Correct or not? Do you know that in Delhi people don't eat rice? I only know this when I go there. I didn't know that Indians don't eat rice until I went to Delhi. La ilaha illallah. I cannot find rice. You cannot find rice in Delhi. Unless you go to a restaurant, like a high-class restaurant, okay, you can buy rice. Nobody sell rice in the streets. Nobody sell rice. We were finding for rice. Everywhere you go, chapati naan. That is basically the food down there. But it surprised us because it's India, correct? No? But when you go to Tamil Nadu, the opposite. Everybody eat rice. Everybody eat rice and it's everywhere. Even you go to the shops in Tamil Nadu, in Malay we call it makan pukul mati. You know pukul mati? You go into the shop, they give you free this additional rice. If they see you finishing any of the rice, they will just pour rice on your plate. Say free, majan. This is the culture, the Indian culture in the south end of India. But if you go to the north, then it is the opposite. You cannot find rice down there. No pukul mati down there. Either you eat chapati or naan. Otherwise, you have to go out. So this is the meaning of ghalib qutil balad. Wa yusrafu ila al-fuqara'i wal masakin li kulli yawm. So how you pay your fidya or kafara? You give to the miskin, the fakir. So you give. You find any miskin, you find a fakir, and then you give any per day. Any per day meaning if you want to pay any 60 mud, then you have to give 60 any mud to the miskin and the fakir. The same goes to fidya. The same goes to fitrah. We give to the fakir and we give to the miskin. In our madhab al-Imam Shafi'i, still he has go back into ghalib qutil balad. In the prevailing judgment in our madhab, even for fitrah, we have to pay by rice. Correct or not? Then the author mentioned, yukhraju min tarikati man mata wa alayhi sawm Ramadan aw ghayrihi. Yani if a person he pass away and he has not made qada, what happens? If a person he pass away and we have not paid the fidya for his fasting. Sometimes when a person is sick in the end, towards the end of the life, They don't fast the whole of Ramadan. They cannot fast. Doctors say cannot fast. Then after that they pass away. So the family members said he must pay on their behalf. Pay any fidya on their behalf. So 1 day, 1 month. 1 day, 1 month. And then if the deceased and he passed away, we take any the money from his inheritance. From his inheritance. Then we have to take any from his inheritance and pay the miskin. The number of days and he doesn't fast. For example, he doesn't fast any for 1 month, 30 days, for example. So it is 30 days any of 1 month any of rice. 30 days. You count any for 30. Then you give any to the miskin or give any to the fakir. And this is wajib. Otherwise, any he returns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he has debts. So all these things that we as children and we must know, especially if they are our parents, we must make sure before we give out the money based on fara'id, all these things that we must take into consideration. What are their debts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the debts to fellow men. But nowadays, any people and they don't care about all these things. The moment their parents and they die, they look, okay, how much my mother left behind, okay. Straight away they calculate. No, that is not the case. You have to take into consideration zakah. You have to take consideration fidya. You have to take consideration in their debt and to other people. And whether they have performed hajj or have not performed hajj. Sometimes a person has the capacity to perform hajj, but does not perform hajj. So you have to take any of the money for them to do badal haji, to perform hajj any for them, and so on and so forth. وَتَمَكَّنَ مِنَ الْقَضَاءِ أَوْ تَعَدَّى بِالْفِطْرِهِ. Yani a person has any the ability to make any qada, but he delays his qada until the next Ramadan comes. Now there is fidya. There is fidya. Or a person who purposely doesn't fast, and then he passed away. Then we have to pay the fidya on his behalf. Because now any fasting becomes obligatory upon him and he doesn't fast. أَوْ يَصُومُ عَنْهُ قَرِيبُهُ. It is permissible for his relative to fast on his behalf. And if, for example, we ask, this is how many days he doesn't fast? 3 days. Okay, I fast for him. Clear? You say, I don't want to pay the fidya, but I want to fast. So now you fast for the deceased. This is permissible. And this is Madhab Shafi'i. Of course, there are differences amongst the fuqaha. So fasting is one of the ibadah that we can do on the behalf of the deceased. Prayers cannot. Can you pray for the deceased? Yes, the deceased how many prayers he doesn't pray? Oh, he doesn't pray subuh, zuhur, asar. Okay, I pray for him. No, prayers cannot. But fasting can. Hajj can. So there are certain ibadah that we can do on the behalf of the deceased, and fasting is one of it. But normally nowadays people don't fast, correct? Just pay pay rice. Nowadays people find it any easier. Yasumu anhu qaribu aw man adina lahu al-warisu aw al-mayyit. Or a person who is given permission by the relative of the deceased, the waris, the inheritor of the deceased. We go to him, we say, I want to ask you permission, I want to fast for the deceased. Can? He say, can. Okay, fast. Must have permission. Or the deceased itself, the deceased himself, before he passed away, he said, please fast for me. The deceased. Then he passed away. We can fast on his behalf. So it must be based on permission. Not secretly fast. We must inform the waris. وَيَجِبُ الْمُدُّ أَيْضًا عَلَى مَنْ لَا يَقْدِرُ عَلَى الصَّوْمِ لِحَرَمٍ أَوْ مَرَضٍ لَا يُرْجَبُهُ. Now, if a person, for example, the doctor says you cannot fast anymore because you have come to an old age, 90 years old. 90 years old, very dangerous to fast. They can pass away. So doctor said, please don't fast because you can pass away at any time. So in this situation, we tell him don't fast. You just pay fidya. Every day, 1 mode of rice. So if Ramadan 30 days, pay 30 days of rice. If a person is sick, the doctor says this is a serious disease. A person have this kidney, dialysis. Doctor say very dangerous to fast. So don't fast. So every day you pay the month. So Ramadan in 30 days and you pay month in 30 days. وَعَلَى الْحَامِلِ وَالْمُرْضِ إِذَا أَفْتَرَتَا خَوْفًا عَلَى الْوَلَدِ مَعَ الْقَضَاءِ. Yani a woman is doing breastfeeding and she doesn't fast. We ask her, why don't you fast? I fear for my child. I fear any for my child. If I fast, it will affect any my milk, and I fear for the infant. We say, now for you, you have to pay fidya. But if she say that I fear for myself, then no fidya. So what is the difference? You see, the principle is this: if a person does not fast for somebody else or due to somebody else, there is fidya. But if a person does not fast because of themselves, there is no fidya. Clear, inshallah? There is only qada. But if a person does not fast due to others, there are two things. There is qada and fidya. Qada and fidya. So if a person then he says that I fear for my child, and she doesn't fast, so we say you have to make qada and you have to pay fidya, because you are breaking your fast not because of you, but because of somebody else. Clear, inshallah? Our scholars even give this example. If a person wants to save a drowned person, and he said that I cannot save until I eat something, because if I don't eat something, I might also be drowned. So I eat first, then I go to save. In this situation, then you have to make qada and you have to pay fidya, because you are breaking any of your fast for somebody else. Clear? Because you want to save somebody else. وَعَلَى مَنْ أَفْتَرَ لِإِنْقَاذِ حَيَوَانًا. This is exactly that's like what I mentioned. إِنْقَاذِ حَيَوَانٍ مُشْرِفٍ عَلَى الْهَلَاكِ. For example, you see a cat. The cat is going to fall from the building. So you want to save the cat. So you have to climb. But he said that in order for me to climb, I must drink some water, because otherwise dehydration, very dangerous, I might fall. I must eat something because I got a bit of headache, got some migraine. So I must eat something, drink something. Okay, tawakkal Allah. So in this case, you have to make qada and to pay the fidya. Even to save hayawan. What about to save human beings? Even the author mentioned to save an animal. To save an animal. So he said, لِإِنْقَاذِ حَيَوَانٍ مُشْرِفٍ عَلَى الْهَلَاكِ وَعَلَى مَنْ أَخَّرَ الْقَضَاءَ إِلَى رَمَضَانَ آخَرَ بِغَيْرِ عُذْرٍ. A person he doesn't fast in Ramadan and he does not make qada until the next Ramadan without any excuse. He can make up, but he doesn't want. So we say wajib to pay the fidya, qada and fidya. Clear, inshallah? But what happens if a person delay for 5 years? How you calculate? So if a person, for example, he doesn't fast the first year, correct? He doesn't fast one day in the first year until the next Ramadan of the second year. So we say there is one qada and fidya, one mod of rice for one day. And then he doesn't make up for the fasting until the third year. So he delay 1 year, he delay another year, 2 years he delay. So now he becomes how many mod? 2 mod. So for every year he delays, it is double. The next year the third year he delay again, haven't fast. Now it becomes 3 mod. And this is only for 1 day. But if a person doesn't fast for 30 days, then you do the calculation. So by the years, he has to what? It becomes double. There are people out there, they have never fasted in their whole life. But then they make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tawbatan nasuh. But what about the fidya? Tawbatan nasuh, must be fidya or no fidya is excuse? Must be a fidya, no choice. So if 30 years no fasting, mashallah, we can sit down and we can calculate how many qada is easy to calculate, correct or not? You just take 30 days or 29 days every year times 30. But when it comes to fidya, you have to slowly calculate, correct or not? Because it becomes double for every year. Although in the Hanafi madhab, they don't have this in the Shafi madhab. Some people say, in this case, I'm a Hanafi. Some people when it comes to this, they say, I am Hanafi. La ilaha illallah. So now we go on. So the author mentioned if there is no uzr, if there is no reason for him not to fast. But if a person is breastfeeding, you see some people, for example, they give birth just before Ramadan. Sorry. They give, they do breastfeeding. In Ramadan, they cannot fast because they are doing breastfeeding, for example. They are doing any breastfeeding. So they don't fast in Ramadan. And then after that, they became sick, for example, for many months. And then the doctor tell them they cannot fast until the next Ramadan. For this, we say no fidya. Why no fidya? Because she cannot fast. Likewise, if a person is hospitalized for 3 years, and the doctor tells him he cannot fast, so he cannot fast. Does it mean that he has to pay the fidya? No. In this situation, there is uzr. So that is what the author mentioned. If there is no uzr, no excuse. Okay. How many minutes left? MashaAllah, 20 minutes left. So I need to speed up a little bit. The author mentioned faslun sawmu tatawwu' sunnatun wa huwa salasatu aqsam. Now the author is going to speak about the sunnah fast. So there are 3 types. Number one occurs yearly. Wa huwa sawmu yawmi arafah. We have the sunnah of yawm arafah. For those who does not perform the hajj, sunnah to fast in yawm arafah. That is the 9th of Zulhijjah. Wal musafir also not any sunnah for them to fast. So other than those performing hajj and musafir. Wa ashri Zulhijjah, the first 9 days of Zulhijjah. Why 9 days of Zulhijjah? Because in the 10th day is what? The 10th day is Eidul Adha. You cannot fast in Eidul Adha. So the first days in Zulhijjah wa Ashura. Then we have the 10th of Muharram, the sunnah to fast. There is a reason for the fasting. The Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to fast because that is the day Allah saved Musa alayhi from Fir'aun. And the Prophet fasted. Tasu'a, to make difference with the Jews, because the Jews also fast in Muharram, 10th of Muharram. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, if I am alive the next year, I will fast on the 9th. But he passed away after that. Wal hadi ashar min al Muharram, likewise our fuqaha mentioned the 11th day of Muharram also sunnah to fast. Wasitin min Shawwal, the 6 days, and hadith of the Prophet ﷺ speaks about siyamud dahr, that those who fast in Ramadan and then after that 6 days in Shawwal, Allah will give them the rewards of fasting the whole year. This is 6 days of Shawwal. Wa yusannu tawaliha wa tisaluha bil Eid. So it is a sunnah to do it continuously, meaning on the 2nd day of Shawwal all the way 6 days. This is the sunnah, the author said. Wa ma yatakarraru bishuhur, and then the monthly fast, Ayyamul Bid, the white days. The white days is 13, 14, 15 of every month. Wa hiya salis ashar, rabi ashar, khamis ashar min kulli shahr. 13, 14, 15. Wal ayyamus sud, wa hiya thamin wal ishrun wa taliyah. It is asamin wal ishrun, 28, 29 and 30. This is the black days. So we have the white days and black days. Why any white days? Because in the middle of the month there is a full moon. So they call it Ayyamul Bid. At the end of the month, no full moon. So this is Ayyamus Sud, the black days. Sunnah for us to fast. Wa ma yatakarraru bil asabi', the weekly fast. Wa huwa al Isnin wal Khamis. The Prophet ﷺ fast Mondays and Thursdays. Was sunnah sawmul ashuril hurum, to fast in the days of the holy months. How many holy months are there? He says Zulqa'dah, Zulhijjah, Muharram, Rajab. These are the 4 months. These are the holy months. Allah will multiply rewards if we fast in the holy months. Wakada sawmu Sha'ban. The Prophet ﷺ fast in the month of Sha'ban as a preparation for Ramadan. Wa afdaluha al-Muharram summa baqil hurum. The best month to fast is the month of Muharram. And then followed by the holy months, then Sha'ban. So this is the sequence when it comes to the virtue. Wa yukrahu ifradul Jum'ah wa Sabt wal Ahad. It is makruh to fast only on Friday, or only on Saturday, or only on Sunday. Why? For Friday, it is makruh to fast only on Friday, because on Friday there is Jum'ah, and it is a sunnah for us to do any ibadah. Unless if a person fasts one day before or one day after. But when comes to Saturday, it is a makruh to fast only on Saturday because the Jews do it. The Jews fast on Sabbath. And then when it comes to Sunday, now the Christians, they fast on Sunday. So it is makruh to fast only on that particular day, unless we fast before or after. Wal afdalu siyam sawmu yawm wa fitri yawm. The best fasting is fast one day, break one day. This is the fast of Nabi Daud alayhi salam. They call it siyamud dahr. Fast one day, break fast one day. Nabi Daud alayhi salam, this is what he do. This is the fasting of Nabi Daud. Fast one day, break fast one day. It is not a sunnah to fast every day. There are people who came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I will fast every day. So the Prophet say, I am the person who has the most taqwa to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. Sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. Meaning the Prophet does not encourage a person all the way, because this person say, I vow to fast for the rest of my life. The Prophet said, don't do it. It is better for you to fast one day and break one day. That is fasting of Dawood, Siyamud Dahr. That is the best. So the Prophet said, فَمَنْ غَرِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Then the Prophet said, those who are not in accordance to my sunnah, they are not from me. This is a heavy message. Because the Prophet ﷺ care for his ummah. If the Prophet said, it is sunnah for you to fast every day, problem. Correct? Not some people say, MashaAllah, it is sunnah, fasting every day. It can lead into serious consequences after that. Then the author he mentioned who was sunnah. Now we speak about i'tikaf, the rulings of i'tikaf. So now when we have completed chapter of fasting, the author he mentioned the chapter of i'tikaf. He says sunnatun muakkada. It is a confirmed sunnah that is emphasized. So it is a sunnah for us to do i'tikaf every time we enter the masjid. In our madhab al-Imam Shafi'i, you have to pay attention to the word masjid. What is a masjid? What is a masjid? If I open my house, I want to make my house as a place of prayer. Will my house become a masjid? If I open my house, I say, okay, I want to designate my house as a place of prayer. 5 times daily prayers. Does it become a masjid? What makes a masjid a masjid? This is the question. What makes a masjid masjid? What makes a masjid a masjid is that when we make endowment, waqf for musalla, once you make a place mawquf, endowment, specifically for prayers, now it becomes a masjid. So meaning what? Meaning now it's not your possession anymore. This belongs to the Muslims, this waqf. But if the land is under your name, meaning like it belongs to you, then this cannot be a masjid. This is a musalla. You see, there are certain masjid and we thought it is a masjid, but actually it's a musalla. There are places, for example, in Indonesia and in Malaysia, outwardly and you see it is a masjid. But actually the owner buy land and build a mosque, but the land is still under his name. Clear? So anytime he can demolish the mosque and build something else. So can you make i'tikaf in these places? Cannot. Why? This is not a masjid. This is a musalla. There is a difference between masjid and musalla. So our fuqaha explain what is the meaning of the place that you can make any i'tikaf. It must be mawquf. Clear, inshallah? So he said, shurutuha sab'a. So there are conditions when it comes to i'tikaf. Number 1, must be a Muslim, Islam. Non-Muslim say, nawaitu li'atikaf fi hadha al-masjid lillahi ta'ala. Not valid. I mentioned last week, all intention from non-Muslim, all not valid, correct or not? Because they don't have iman. Al-aql must have mental consciousness, intellect. Must possess intellect. If a mad person, not valid. It's not a mukallaf. Naqa anil haidi wan nifas. For women, for example, they must not be in a state of menstruation and postnatal bleeding. They cannot enter the masjid. If they are haid, cannot enter the masjid unless they just pass by the masjid can. But they cannot enter the masjid with the intention of being inside. وَأَنْ لَا يَكُونَ جُنُبًا, not any in a state of janaba, cannot enter the masjid. وَأَنْ يَلْبَسَ فَوْقَ طُمَأْنِينَةِ الصَّلَاةِ, minimum فَوْقَ طُمَأْنِينَةِ الصَّلَاةِ. What is the meaning of طُمَأْنِينَةِ الصَّلَاةِ? When we say Subhanallah, the time taken to say Subhanallah, this طُمَأْنِينَةِ الصَّلَاةِ. So how many seconds is that? 1 second maybe, 2 seconds. Subhanallah. So that is the minimum duration for i'tikaf. But if a person does it very fast, like he jump to the masjid and he jump back, no tumanina, we say no i'tikaf. Although he make the intention of i'tikaf, that is not considered to be i'tikaf because there is no tumanina. This is the minimum. So whenever you enter the masjid, you make the intention of i'tikaf. No problem. Even when you want to perform prayers for a few minutes, make the intention of i'tikaf, you will get the rewards of i'tikaf. If you don't make the intention of i'tikaf, you don't get the reward of i'tikaf. وَأَنْ يَكُونَ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. وَأَنْ يَكُونَ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. This is what I mentioned just now. وَأَنْ يَكُونَ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. It must be inside the masjid. وَالْجَامِعْ أَوْلَى. Jami' is better. What is Jami'? Jami' is the big mosque in the center of the city where the Jum'ah is done. That is the best. That is the best place to do i'tikaf. Jami'. Clear inshallah? So for example, if you go Singapore, we don't have like a jami. Last time Masjid Sultan is considered to be jami, last time. But now all mosques become jami. Yani jami basically the mosque that has Jum'ah. The mosque that has Jum'ah. Last time Singapore, not many mosques, right? So when it comes to Jum'ah, people go to Masjid Sultan. So Masjid Sultan is considered to be Masjid Jami'. Now if you go to Batu Pahat, for example, Batu Pahat, there is Jami', Masjid Jami' Batu Pahat. So when it comes to Jum'ah, all the surah, all the mosques around will be closed. No Jum'ah. Jum'ah only in this masjid, this Jami'. That is the way. That is the way. Not any way. If for example, this Jami' can accommodate all the people in the city, now it's wajib for the people of the city and need to go to this masjid, and all the other mosques must close. Clear inshallah? When it comes to the Jum'ah prayers, we can speak about this. There's this condition that you cannot open any Jum'ah prayers as you wish. It depends. It depends on the number of people in the city. So it is the Mufti who is the one who dedicate which mosque has Jum'ah, which mosque has no Jum'ah. All these things is based on the number of congregants. Like places in Tarim, only 3 mosques has Jum'ah. But in Tarim, you have more than 100 mosques, but only 3 mosques Jum'ah. How come 3 mosques any Jum'ah? Because why? These 3 mosques can accommodate the whole of Tarim. So it's not permissible for you to open the 4th mosque. Even though there are hundreds, more than 100 mosques there, I think. But Singapore's situation is different, and if we ask how many Muslims are needed, how many Muslims are needed, the mosques in Singapore can accommodate the Muslims, all the Muslims? The answer is yes, correct or not? The answer is yes. In Singapore, we have about 70 mosques. So normally we don't have any problem. All mosques are full in Jummah. And there are people who will find place to pray Jummah, inshallah. So we got no problem in Singapore. Okay, where are we now? وَأَنْ يَنْوِي الْإِعْتِكَافِ. The author mentioned that you must make the intention of i'tikaf. وَيَجِبُ نِيَّةُ الْفَرْضِيَّةِ إِنْ نَذَرَهُ. If a person makes another vow, then he must make the obligatory intention. He must make the intention obligatory. وَيُجَدِّدُ النِّيَّةَ بِالْخُرُوجِ إِنْ لَمْ يَنْوِ الرُّجُوعِ. If a person, for example, he does any i'tikaf and he goes out of the masjid without having the intention to come back. If he comes back, then he has to make another intention. But if he goes out and he has the intention to come back, no need for him to make the intention of i'tikaf, because it is considered to be the intention. وَإِنْ قَدَّرَهُ بِمُدَّةٍ فَيُجَدِّدُهَا إِنْ خَرَجَ لِغَيْرِ قَضَاءِ الْحَاجَةِ. If a person, for example, says that I want to make i'tikaf for 5 hours in this masjid, but before 5 hours he goes out, and he goes out not for haja, he goes out shopping, and then he comes back, we say you have to start from 0. Why? Because when you go out before 5 hours, you have to start from the beginning. But if he goes out to the toilet, no problem. For example, he makes i'tikaf 1 hour, He says that I want to make i'tikaf for 5 hours, or I vow to make i'tikaf for 5 hours. After 1 hour, he goes out of the masjid. Where he's going? To the toilet. This haja. This is a necessity. So if he comes back, he can continue. But if he goes out and not because of necessity, then it breaks the i'tikaf. Then he mentioned, وَإِنْ كَانَ مُتَتَابِئًا جَدَّدَهَا إِنْ خَرَجَ لِمَا يَقْطَعُ التَّتَابُعُ. Yani if it is a continuous i'tikaf, then he has to renew it if he does not continue in the i'tikaf. For example, if a person he make the intention to do any i'tikaf consecutively for some time, but he goes out from the masjid without any reason. So every time he comes back, he must renew it. وَإِنْ عَيَّنَ فِي نَذَرِهِ مَسْجِدًا فَلَهُ أَنْ يَعْتَكِفَ فِي غَيْرِهِ. If a person say, I make nazar to make i'tikaf in Masjid Sultan, but then he goes to Masjid Khalid, can or cannot? He mentioned in his vow Masjid Sultan, but he goes to Masjid Khalid, can, as long as it's a masjid. But the author says, إِلَّا الْمَسَاجِدِ الثَّلَاثَةِ. Masajid Salasa meaning Masjid Haram, Masjid Nabawi, Masjid Aqsa. If a person say, I vow to make i'tikaf in Masjid Al-Haram for 3 hours, you cannot go to Masjid Sultan. You have to wait. Book your flight, any Umrah. And then you have to go there, you have to i'tikaf for 3 hours. You cannot go anywhere else, except the mosque that you have specified. But other than these 3 mosques, no problem. وَيَحْرُمُ الْإِعْتِكَافِ بِغَيْرِ إِذْنِ الزَّوْجِ. For women doing i'tikaf, not permissible for them to do i'tikaf in the masjid without the permission of the husband. Without the permission of the husband, not permissible for women to go to the masjid for i'tikaf. وَالسَّيِّد. Sayyid is a master, the slave, and he wants to do i'tikaf. He must have permission from the master. وَيَبْطُلُ الْإِعْتِكَافِ بِالْجِمَاعِ. These are the things that make i'tikaf invalid. Sexual intercourse, number 1. وَالْمُبَاشَرَ بِالشَّهْوَةِ. Sexual arousal. In anzala, it leads to ejaculation. This breaks i'tikaf. Wabil junun, a person becomes insane. Irma, a person faints. Wal janaba, a person become in a state of junub. Ridda, apostasy. Sukr, intoxicated. All these things break the validity of i'tikaf. Wa in nadhara i'tikaf muddatan muayyana lazimahu. If a person vow for a certain period to do i'tikaf, it becomes wajib. Understood? Wa yaqta'u tatabu' as-sukr wal kufr wa ta'ammudul jima'. All these things breaks the i'tikaf. Breaks the continuity of i'tikaf. Because he says, I want to i'tikaf for 5 hours. But then he becomes intoxicated or apostate or does sexual intercourse. Now, what do you call it? He breaks the i'tikaf. He must start from the beginning. وَتَعَمُّدُ الْخُرُوجِ مِنَ الْمَسْجِدِ لَا لِقَضَاءِ الْحَاجَةِ. That's what we mentioned. He goes out for the masjid not because of haja, because of something else. You have to pay back. وَلَا أَكْلِ وَلَا شُرْبِ إِن تَعَذَّرَ الْمَاءُ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. When it comes to eating and drinking, no problem. This is considered to be a necessity. He can continue the i'tikaf if there is no water in the masjid. وَلَا لِلْمَرَضِ إِنْ شَقَّ لُبْسُهُ فِيهِ أَوْ خَشْيَ تَلْوِيثَهُ. Likewise, it is forgiven for sick people. And if they say that I cannot stay long in the mosque, I have to go out, to go to the doctor. Say, go doctor. This is a necessity. Correct or not? Or a person he is having sickness and he fear that he dirty the masjid. He has to go out even the masjid. This is a necessity. وَمِثْلُهُ الْجُنُونَ وَالْإِغْمَاءُ. And likewise, becoming mad and fainting. All these things breaks i'tikaf. وَلَا إِنْ أُكْرِهَا بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ عَلَى الْخُرُوجِ. If a person is forced to go out of the masjid, it is forgiven because he is forced. وَلَا يَقْطَعُهُ الْحَيْضُ إِنْ لَمْ تَسَعْهُ مُدَّةُ الطُّهُرِ. If a woman, for example, vows to fast, but then there is menses, she is forgiven. Then she has to continue. After menses, has to continue. If she say 30 days, 7 days menses, what happens? You have to continue. After menses, come back you have to come back to the masjid, continue. Because you have made the vow for the number of days. And menses is something that cannot be avoided, so it's forgiven. Wallahu a'lam bis-shawab. Is there any questions so far? MashaAllah, I ended 9:59. This karama. 9:59. I managed to end on time. The complete chapter of fasting. But of course, the last part, you have to go like an express train. No choice, huh? Is there any questions so far? Everything good? Yes. Yeah. Yes, yes. If he has the capacity to pay the kafara, but he does not pay, then he passes away. Oh, I see. Yeah. No, in this situation, then it is forgiven. That's what is mentioned by the author just now. A person, for example, he does any jima, then after that he passes away. So now he doesn't have the capacity to pay because of the time. Because he passed away instant death. So in this situation, it is forgiven. But if he can pay, meaning of 5 years have passed, and he passed away, we say now you have to take any from his inheritance to pay for the kafara, because he has the capacity to pay. Unless he pass away immediate, meaning he does that act, then he pass away. Here we say he is forgiven because he doesn't have the capacity to do anything. Death comes, what to do? Yeah. 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 Okay, you see, the thing is, if you make nadar, it becomes wajib. And wajib, in terms of virtues and rewards, is far much than the sunnah. So it covers the shortcomings of the fard and the prayers. If we say the sunnah prayers can cover the shortcomings of the fard prayers, what about the wajib and the prayers in the form of nadar? Can you see it? So it also covers any shortcomings of the prayers. Yes, yes, yes. And the rewards in it much more than the sunnah prayers. Yeah, yeah. It must be sunnah, cannot be wajib. You cannot, for example, nadar on Isha prayers, not valid. But you can do nadar on the sunnah prayers, the qabliyah prayers, the ba'diyah prayers, witr prayers, tarawih prayers, as long as it's a sunnah. You can make the intention of nadar, but the thing is, it becomes wajib upon you. Yeah, if you make a vow to pray even 2 rak'ah of qabliyah, now becomes wajib. Yes, yes. Yeah, this is another thing. We have to know how to make the intention of nadar. Point number 1, you must say it out. See, nadar, you cannot in your heart. You cannot only be saying, I make nadar to pray tarawih prayers and 2 rak'ah. Not valid. This is not nadar. You have to say out the intention. That is why, for example, when it comes to i'tikaf, you enter the masjid, you say, nadartul i'tikaf fi hadha al-masjid ma dumtu fihi. Nawaitul i'tikaf al-mandhur. This is the second part. Number 1, you have to say out the intention of nadar. Number 2, you have to intend what you say at the point of you doing the action. So there are 2 things. So for example, if you make nadar, for example, ba'diyatul isha, okay? So you say, for example, I vow to pray ba'diyatul isha 2 raka'at for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, now it becomes compulsory upon you. Okay, but you haven't prayed yet, right? You haven't prayed yet. When you do the takbir, when you do Allah, you have any to make the intention that this, subhanallah, this particular prayer is bow. You have to make that intention. Otherwise, it does not fulfill the nadar. It is still on your shoulders. Clear, inshallah? So that, no, not say you have to intend in your heart that this prayer is mandura. In Arabic, and we call it mandura. We say usalli raka'atain, usalli qabliyata al-isha raka'atain al-mandura lillahi ta'ala. Al-mandura meaning the prayer that I vowed any earlier. So you have to include this in your intention. Otherwise, it does not fulfill. So all these things that we need to understand. So making a vow, and to fulfill that vow, there are conditions. There are conditions. So when it comes to i'tikaf, we have to enter the masjid, then we make the vow. Wallahu a'lam. Is there any other questions? Yes.
The first question is when you mentioned about the to the cost of Ramadan, and he has to kafara for 2 months. But the ruling of the fasting is retaliated.
Yeah, he has to make qada also.
So he must have qada.
Yeah.
So can you do the qada within the 2 months also, or within the kafara period, or you can do qada and the kafara period? So that's my first question. The second question is the general question about qada. For example, someone lost count of how many days he has to do qada. Is there a general saying within our body about all the scholars about how many days or within the period that we need to do qada?
Okay, as for number one, you see, we have to differentiate between qada and kafara. You see, kafara is 2 months continuously. This is not inclusive any of qada. So it is 2 months continuously and 1 day. Clear? So it is not any inclusive. This is point number one. Your second question, how you calculate? A person, for example, he has been fasting for his whole life. If he has been fasting for his whole life, you calculate from the age of puberty. So normally, at what age does a person becomes puberty? So if a person knows, for example, he said, I reached puberty at the age of 12, for example. Okay, how old are you now? This person, for example, and he says, I'm 60 years old. So you take 60, you minus 12. So you get 48. So 48, and you count. Every year, there are 30 days in Ramadan, times 48. That is the number of days for qada. So this is how we calculate. But if a person says, sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. Okay, what is the percentage that sometimes you fast and sometimes you don't fast? 50-50. Okay, we take 15 days and you fast, 15 days you don't fast. So if you have been doing this for 30 years, so meaning you have fasted for 15 years and not fasted for 15 years. So you have to pay for 15 years. Because if you say, sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. If it is 50-50. But if it is 1/3, sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't fast. But sometimes I fast is 1/3. Don't fast 2/3. Then you make that estimation. But at the end of the day, what is best is that we increase and not to be exact, just to play safe. Clear, inshallah? Okay. If there is no other questions, we stop here, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. I would like to also thank Ustaz for giving us this opportunity, and also the team from Masjid Hadi Yusuf. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of them, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad wa ardhani sahabati ajma'in. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-'afwa wal-'afiyata wal-mu'afata ad-daima fi dini wa dunya wal akhirah. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ridhaka wal jannah wa na'udzu bika min sakhatika wan nar. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ziyadatan fid din, barakatan fil umur, sihhatan min lisan wa si'atan min rizq wa tawbatan qabla al-maut, shahadatan al-maut, maghfiratan ba'da al-maut, 'afwan min nisab, amanan min 'adab, nasiban min al-jannah. وارزقنا النظر الى وجهك الكريم صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. تقبل الله منكم. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.